Greetings, dear viewers. Anthony Marsh on Power Rangers Lost Galaxy fan film with a new episode of the Terra Venture podcast, bringing you podcast episode 334, presented by my Morphin Megaverse Power Rangers Facebook group. 3 years later into the Hasbro era of Power Rangers later, and I'm astounded with the selection of Lightning Collection figures they had put out. You know, the Hasbro's Power Rangers Lightning Collection is fascinating. There's some good things to like about this line. There's some things to not like about this line. But everything that Hasbro has been doing so far with this line is better than anything we had come before when it came to merchandising for Power Rangers. You know, over the last 2 years, when I started collecting it, well, although the Lightning Collection did start 3 years ago in 2019, but I didn't start collecting the Lightning Collection until I got my hands on, well, the fact that the very first Lightning Collection figures I had from Hasbro was for the Shadow Ranger and Magna Defender. But I didn't really get my kick on the Lightning Collection until 2020, once I made my comeback to YouTube in 2020 and starting a new era of doing Power Ranger reviews on my channel. Because given the fact that, well, let's face it, when Bandai America still had the license to Power Rangers, and this is, you know I don't want to harp on Bandai too much because, you know, they're no longer with the brand for toys anymore. But back when Bandai used to do Power Ranger toys, yeah, I used to rant a lot about the quality going down ever since the 2010 reversion or whatever. But up until Super Ninja Steel and the last of their Legacy Collection line and the Legacy Mighty Morphin line of things, and the release of their toys for the 2017 Power Rangers movie. I'm talking about Bandai, not Hasbro. The quality of the toys were, yeah, pretty much abysmal, and I've longed for this for the longest time, that Hasbro would eventually do toys of Power Rangers, but not as how I would expect, because back when we didn't have Hasbro as the toy manufacturer currently for Power Rangers, or overall owning the entire license to Power Rangers with everything, not just the toys, but like everything else for PR. But Bandai America during the latter of the 2010s, and I said this back, you know, when I did my video talking about Hasbro and Beastmorphers 4 years ago, about potentially what would happen if Hasbro did start making Power Ranger figures and stuff. It was not going to be what I was hoping, but I knew for a fact I always had faith that Hasbro would do better with Power Ranger stuff than what Bandai was doing. Because when I think back to that long 25-year inventory of Power Ranger toys that we had from Bandai America, from Mighty Morphin through Super Ninja Steel, 2017 movie notwithstanding, that the quality of the toys were mixed at best in terms of, like, well, the Morphers, the Megazords, and toy vehicles. Now, when I think about the action figures that Bandai had done over the last 25, then at the time years, up until Super Ninja Steel, well, to be honest though, when I look at the action figures we had from Bandai versus what we got from Hasbro today, for like the basic line of toys for Beastmorphers and Dino Fury, mostly with the Lightning Collection, the action figures that Hasbro had put out are so up par to Bandai's figures, but if not, they are superior to Bandai's Power Rangers action figures. Because the thing is, looking at a lot of the action figures we had from Bandai America were, yeah, not all that great. Because when you look at the action figures Hasbro had been putting out lately for Power Rangers, for the Lightning Collection, and the mainline toys for Beastmorphers and Dino Fury, they are something that we should have had for Power Rangers when Bandai was doing the toys years ago. But you know how a lot of Power Ranger fans, when you look at these figures now compared to what Bandai was putting out when we were all growing up, the Bandai figures were always like, they had this exaggerated comic book physique to all of the Power Rangers, male and female. Although, yeah, a lot of fans didn't like the fact the female Rangers, when they had their action figures, no wonder that's why their figures never sold all that much, was because they always made the female Rangers have big boobs, and then the male Rangers had these exaggerated, buffed up muscles and stuff, you know, which none of the Power Rangers from Mighty Morphin through Super Ninja Steel ever had in show, because they were just regular people bodies inside the spandex. Even though most of the time when you think about all the Power Rangers except for the main cast, most of the main actors behind the Power Rangers are never most of the time in the suits doing all that fighting. Most of the time it was usually the stunt people and just suit actors on set and location doing all the stunt work and fighting and stuff, and how the Power Rangers should look on the screen, regardless who's in the suits, the main cast of each season or stunt and suit acting doubles. And I think I should applaud Hasbro for fixing a lot of mistakes Bandai had done when it came to the action figures, because Hasbro doesn't do what Bandai does when it comes to the action figures. And I know I've waited to say this for the last 3 years after I had not did this podcasting for a while anymore. But on the top of that, though, when you think back to the Lightning Collection and its start, I remember when the Lightning Collection began. And when I first heard of it, most people wanted to see only the Mighty Morphin figures being produced. Of course, you know, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers is going to sell more. But at this stage, in 2022, I think I should just accept that MMPR is Power Rangers' golden goose when it comes to merchandising. I know how I was back in the 2010s when I was still doing this podcast. I always complained about how MMPR is getting so much new stuff while all the other seasons are like, well, of course, you know, it's taken a long while for a lot of the later teams to get brand new action figures made, because a lot of the new stuff for Power Rangers over the last decade was all mostly nothing dedicated to MMPR, and we hardly ever had anything for the other seasons. But during the past during the last decade with the Neo Saban era, everything was mostly all about MMPR nostalgia, while we also had Samurai through Ninja Steel. Now, all of a sudden, in the Hasbro era, it's Mighty Morphin and Hasbro's only 2 seasons so far, Beastmorphers and Dino Fury. All the seasons sandwiched in between that with like Zeo through Super Ninja Steel, well, again, it'll take time give them time to put out these figures, and as well as the distribution for the figures. One of the other things I also like to give Hasbro props for that, even as much as I can be a bit impatient when they're going to put out the rest of certain teams and also villains, is that, well, Hasbro doesn't do what Bandai does, where remember back in the day when Bandai still had the toy master license to Power Rangers, they would always put out 20 to 30 new toys out every few months. Hasbro doesn't play that shit, to be frank, because Hasbro does things different in terms of distribution of new toys for most of their stuff. But with Power Rangers, given now we're in their 3rd consecutive year with the toy license, and I'm seeing how most of the stuff they've been putting out has been lesson and lesson, which is good. Because when it was Bandai, and back when we still had Toys R Us, stores like that, I was just completely overwhelmed with how many Power Ranger toys Bandai America was always putting out. And over the last decade, and back when I was ranting about my personal situation of things regarding money, I've complained about I couldn't afford getting the legacy stuff. I couldn't afford anything Super Mega Force was putting out, like all those remaining leftover Ranger keys and shit. I couldn't be able to collect all the Dino Charge stuff they had, all the Megazords and Dino Chargers and stuff at the time. But that's past me now. But now with the Lightning Collection, this gives me a chance for me to take my time trying to get figures that I didn't had in Power Rangers with the Lightning Collection, make up for lost time. And especially, I do want to finish up Mighty Morphin, because currently at this time, if you've seen my review videos for some of the Mighty Morphin figures I currently do have in my side of the Lightning Collection, I only have Mighty Morphin Power Rangers white, red, black, and blue. I do not have green, both the original and Fighting Spirit, pink, which either Kimberly standalone and Catherine with bundled with Pink Zeo, and Mighty Morphin Yellow with either Trini or bundled with, Aisha's Mighty Morphin Yellow with Scorpino on me as of yet. And the only Mighty Morphin villains I have in my Lightning Collection is Lord Zedd and Ranger Slayer from the comics, of course. And one of the things I do mind about Hasbro is that they are focusing on all the Power Rangers. I'm happy they're actually doing that. Because when we had the legacy stuff for Power Rangers from Bandai before they lost the license, boo-hoo, yeah, I'm glad Hasbro is doing something Bandai couldn't do this past decade, because they, with all this nostalgia of the, okay, I gotta stop. They basically were, Bandai America were so fixated on putting out brand new Mighty Morphin stuff because to cash in on that 90s nostalgia and the nostalgia for Mighty Morphin. Because Mighty Morphin Power Rangers brings in more dough to these companies that make merchandise than they would if they were putting out new stuff for SPD or new stuff for Time Force or new stuff for Jungle Fury, new stuff for Lost Galaxy, new stuff for Turbo, something like that, for instance. Because most of the majority of a lot of people that know about Power Rangers don't know nothing about the other series, because especially for those, if you were one of those out there, I'm talking about you people out there, and I know even in 2022, and now I'm getting old, but I still got it a little bit saying this, calling some people out. You know who I'm talking about, because knowing the fact that I understand everybody has their perspective of how they see a Power Rangers. If it's only about MMPR, it's only about MMPR. But gotta understand, without Mighty Morphin, we wouldn't have the rest of Power Rangers. We wouldn't have the rest of all of the seasons and stuff. But I've looked at how many Mighty Morphin centric figures we have gotten with the TV show figures and the comic figures. We don't have any of the 1995 movie figures yet, but so far, and in some inclination of the 1995 movies, resemblance would be like the Ninja Ranger figures with the head sculpts of Tommy, Kimberly, Adam, and Billy in their Ninja Ranger forms, with their head sculpts, and which are Hasbro Pulse exclusives. I know I'm going to wait on when they announce Rocky and Aisha with their Ninja Ranger forms, with their cloaked ninja mask sculpt and their unmasked ninja sculpt showing their faces for those figures. And then, of course, the Tenga, well, as Tengu because of the ooze beak, indicating they'll likely potentially do an Ivan Ooze figure in the Lightning Collection line for 1995 Mighty Morphin movie stuff. And even when they did that Mighty Morphin Pink Ranger Morpher thing, that's also on Hasbro Pulse and GameStop. That also was based on the deco of the 1995 movie aesthetic. But it also has the power coins of the others. Although, yeah, Bandai America did that for the Legacy line with a Mighty Morphin 1985 movie Pink Ranger Morpher for the Legacy line, but Hasbro did it, and I was like, well, even if it's just Mighty Morphin Pink's Morpher, but maybe what they should have did was, instead of making it more like the movie Morpher, making the movie stuff makes sense, because I was unsure whether if they did have the rights to do merchandise of the 1995 movie, because from when I saw the Tenga Warrior being announced last year, then 4 of 6 of the Ninja Ranger figures, then the Pink Ranger Morpher being out in the aesthetic of, again, the 1995 Mighty Morphin Power Rangers movie again, then it just made me wonder, I think they do have the rights to make merchandise of the movie now. Next thing you know, they'll probably do, like, I just swear to God, when they do a Zord Ascension project, Ninja Megazord, something tells me they're going to do a Ninja Megazord Zap toy that looks like the one from that, that piece of crap, ugly as hell Ninja Megazord from the 1995 movie with that god-awful looking, horrible resemblance of what it looks like in Kaku Ranger and Season 3. And, well, as much as I mind Bandai's legacy figures for the 1995 Mighty Morphin movie, which I still have, but I must wonder how those figures would look in Hasbro's Lightning collection. They got the Tenga, they got that Pink Ranger Morpher in the movie's aesthetic, they got 4 of the 6 Ninja Ranger figures again, but I just can't wait until, well, after they're done with Rocky and Aisha and their ninja forms afterwards, that eventually they will do potentially Lightning collection figures of the 1995 Mighty Morphin Power Rangers movie. But it's not that hard to do those figures, because when I saw Bandai's stab at those figures, I liked how they finally got those suits right for action figures. Because, of course, you know, when the original merchandise for the 1995 movie was out back 27 odd some years ago, the technology of how to make action figures like out of the movie wasn't there yet. There was no way how to make action figures or merchandise based on the movie's designs. All they did was take the existing action figure molds we had from the TV show, but repackage it as movie merch, but make the action figures all this metallic and all this metallic paint coating to it, if for any of us older fans who knew that stuff. And it took Bandai all that long to make those action figures like that. So hopefully what Hasbro will do, if they get their hands on doing any of the 1995 Mighty Morphin movie team figures, let's see how they up the ante from what Bandai did back in 2015 with those figures in the Lightning collection. Just cross your fingers one day for that. The Lightning collection, when you think about it, is also considered what they said is an anthology line. So when they think anthology, they mean like they're going to cover every speck of Power Rangers lore, TV show, movies, and comics in this line of toys. That's interesting because, you know, I do want to own every single figure of all of the monsters, rangers, and villains, but basically I feel like how many like character centric figures they're going to put out though? It's not like they're going to put out like, or are they going to put out like a lot of or are they going to put out mentors, or are they going to put out any ancillary characters like Bulk and Skull as action figures before, you know, even though Bulk and Skull did become Rangers in Boom Studios' Go-Go Power Ranger comic, but is it possible Bulk and Skull can have action figures too as Rangers, and when they were not Rangers, and when regarding TV show Bulk and Skull versus Bulk and Skull in the Boom comic universe? Only time will tell. And then potentially they'll probably put out also from the Boom Studio comics, like the Dark Rangers from the comics. I don't mean them crappy putty repaints from the TV show from the final 2-parter of Tommy as the Green Ranger. I mean the Dark Rangers where they were based off of Rita, Goldar, Finster, Squamabu's aesthetics, if you know what I mean, from the comics, even though I haven't read the Boom comics, but I did saw a resemblance of them. And they'll probably put out more stuff from the Boom comics, like as I theorized that eventually between now and 2024 they will probably do more Boom Studios comic stuff for MMPR, like probably a potential 5-pack of the original 5 Mighty Morphin with the Green Ranger's power, where, you know, if you remember in Boom Studios Power Ranger comics, from what I saw in an issue when I was at my local comic shop pre-COVID, that I saw in that issue where the Green Ranger's power, when, you know, somewhere in that comic, but I wish if I were to read that comic again, where Tommy's Green Ranger power pass on to the original 5, and where the suits, you know, where the Mighty Morphin team would be all green. And can you imagine if they did an all green original 5 set in the Lightning collection to imitate how it looked in the comics with that from the first 2 volumes pre-Shattered Grid of MMPR, the Boom Universe comics? You know, think about it. Or even the 1969 Mighty Morphin team for the Lightning collection. Think about that too. I mean, even though Psycho Green had already came out in the Lightning Collection not so long ago, and Psycho Green, well, as much as I still well, I'll discuss Psycho Green next time, but befuddling to the fact that Psycho Green did come into the comics, but then all of a sudden onto Power Ranger lore canonically or so. But again, I'll discuss Psycho Green next time. Where, yeah, the 1969 Rangers, they would be potentially in the Lightning Collection. That would be cool if they did them too as well. But then also when it comes to some of the Rangers affiliated with Lord Draken, like the Sentry Rangers, like the Tyrannosaurus Sentry, which we only have so far. I already have Ranger Slayer. And again, for someone who is not so big on Boom Studios' Power Ranger comics, yeah, it's nice that they did the action figures of those comic-centric characters. But as much as I'm not crazy about the comics as of current, or crazy about the stuff they added to the lore of PR with the comic stuff, but I mind them doing those figures, as much as I did like that Ranger Slayer figure, despite I'm not a big Ranger Slayer fan or a fan of the Boom comics, because knowing me and my Lost Galaxy fan film hoopla and stuff. But also, I minded them doing two different Lord Draken figures, where you got your regular one, and then you got the one that's a Hasbro Pulse or so exclusive, where you had the black cape and the black and gold and all that, the red visor with that. Yeah, that too. And that lightning base piece with all the broken Ranger helmets to it. But when it came to exclusivity, most figures I know have been available in all retailers: Amazon, Walmart, Target, eBay, anywhere you can find these figures. But of course, when it comes to some exclusivity for certain figures where they will sell best as exclusives, there are some figures that they had put out, particularly at Target. Okay? Whenever I do go to Target for any Power Rangers Lightning Collection figures, I don't think about buying any of the figures that are Target exclusives, like the Tyrannosaurus Sentry, or, well, recently, not so long ago, before I recorded this episode, I did, at my local Target, spot Andros in his cloaked form at my Target. They were like, when I went to Target, and well, I wish I still had that photo I had, but, well, my phone is dead at this point. I took a photo of the Andros figure they had in my local Target before my phone died. I wish I could have still had that photo on me, but I did spot those Andros figures at my local Washingtonian Grove Rio Target store here in Gaithersburg. And when I found that Andros figure, I was like, wow, only 4 of them? I bet you some people are going to be lucky someone's going to get that. Some collector in my area is going to get those Androses. And but they still didn't have the Tyrannosaurus Sentry. Back in 2020, though, when I was also at Target, when I did saw some of the Lightning figures in the Spectrum packaging, that I did spot a few of the Dino Charge Black Ranger. And when I heard that Hasbro was going to put out the Dino Charge Black Ranger as a Target exclusive, and I was like, why Target? And I said to myself, man, I don't want to go to Target and find the Black Dino Charge Ranger. And basically, when I went to Target, well, again, I was thinking about personal stuff, necessities and all at the time. This was back in October of 2020, before I thought about doing the In-Space Yellow Ranger, which you saw my review of. I wanted to do the Dino Charge Black Ranger. But for those who saw my Master Chief figure review thing, I was like, nah, I'm just going to get that Master Chief figure instead and forget the Dino Charge Black Ranger. But now, 2 years later, I kind of regret not getting it. So even if I have to go on eBay via with PayPal and buy a Dino Charge Black Ranger Lightning figure for like $60 off of eBay, I don't care. I'll probably still at least have the money for it one day, depending on the seller. But, again, I just hate going to Target for some Power Rangers Lightning Collection figures. I just do. I mean, some of the figures I already bought, you know, and even when I was in Target, I mean, some of the figures that I already bought off of Amazon, because, you know, knowing me, I've been an Amazon customer for a really long time, for a decade now. And all of the Power Ranger stuff I bought off of Amazon, well, again, was on Amazon. But for some of the figures that are exclusives at GameStop, like the rest of A Squad, or Target exclusives like Tyrannosaurus Sentry and the Dino Charged Black Ranger and Andros, I just like, you know, where else can I find them? Oh yeah, Hasbro Pulse. And I have also signed up with Hasbro Pulse, but I haven't bought a single Lightning Collection thing from Hasbro Pulse. Not even the Dino Thunder White Ranger. Well, with the fixed helmet and all. But they really was putting out so many great figures. As much as I do like a lot of the action figures for Power Rangers, they did put out for the Lightning line. But there were some figures that I was not really that crazy about, as much as I would like to own them. Well, especially when it, again, came with, in regards of the Boom Studio comic characters. Lord Draken, Ranger Slayer, what have you. Because as someone who is really more fixated on his fan film thing, when I still haven't done anything about it, but still just ranting about wanting to make one, but then when I do attempt it, you know, blah, blah, blah. But I'll talk about that next time. Despite this is my 10th year on YouTube. You know, I never really thought that they would actually put out the comic stuff. I wasn't crazy about Lord Draken or Ranger Slayer, but when I did get my hands on Ranger Slayer, I liked how she looked from the comic to a toy form. The Tyrannosaurus Sentry, well, as much as I mind them for fixing the Mighty Morphin Red Ranger's helmet, mostly the visor part at last, because it took all these years, almost nearly 30 years of Power Rangers to fix the Mighty Morphin Red Ranger's helmet, which I'll discuss in a couple of minutes. And when it came to some other characters from the comics, Psycho Green again, the Green Psycho Ranger, when they did his figure, wasn't crazy about that. Lord Draken with his two different figures, wasn't crazy about those. So I was just not that crazy about anything Boom Studios, about the Boom Studio characters coming out. But again, Ranger Slayer was decent. She was one of the best of the figures that I had, but I'm just still not crazy about the comic characters. What I was really more crazy about is the Lightning Collection figures for the Power Rangers canonically from the TV series. Well, as much as for some people who wish that the 2017 Rangers from that movie, that flop of a movie, was to be made in the Lightning Collection. Yeah, can you imagine if they hear that the 2017 movie Rangers ever made it into the Lightning Collection, all the fans of that movie would go ballistic and go, completely bananas if those figures of those 2017 crap movie Rangers ever came out. I don't mean to say it like, that's just my opinion about the 2017 movie again. And now we're 5 years since Power Rangers 2017. Okay, but the TV show characters, from Mighty Morphin through Dino Fury. Dino Fury Red is the only Lightning Collection figure for them that's going to come out soon right now. And I know they haven't finished Beastmorphers, but, when Hasbro started the Lightning line, while they were still doing all those Mighty Morphin figures that they were pushing out, because I know all the diehards and the older fans, the much older fans than me, wanted to get all Mighty Morphin as possible. Because, again, MMPR sells. Hashtag MMPR sells. They basically didn't finish up Beastmorphers. The closest we did for Beastmorphers was Red, Gold, Blue, and Blaze in his Season 1 Cobra Dark Ranger sort of form. But they never did put out the rest of the Beastmorpher characters, because, common sense that when Hasbro started doing Power Rangers, they should have did Mighty Morphin and Beastmorpher stuff simultaneously in the Lightning line. But since Mighty Morphin is, once again, like I said, the golden goose of Power Rangers in terms of merchandising and everything else, it made sense for them to put out so much of MMPR to dominate the line. I know a lot of the MMPR crowd of fans of the fandom just want nothing but MMPR, because I get their preference. But putting out all of MMPR at once every line, well, again, I gotta understand, for someone who's a fan of Lost Galaxy, Time Force, and them, well, basically, people like me would have to wait. Because, yeah, I'm going to collect all the Power Rangers, but not only that, I was, back in 2019 when Bandai's license had wrapped up, I was hesitant to do the Lightning Collection. Because, I was, now speaking of MMPR for the Lightning Collection, yet again, when they started doing the Lightning figures for them, while I was still collecting the last of the Legacy figures, when I got my hands on the Legacy figures for Mighty Morphin Green and Mighty Morphin White, the Mighty Morphin Green and White Rangers, at last, even when I struggled trying to get a Green Ranger for the Legacy line, I was hesitant of thinking about the Lightning Collection figures for MMPR because, while as Marvel Legends-esque they were, but one of the few things I did had fickles about before I even started owning these figures for MMPR was the way how they sculpted some of the features to the outfits. Like, especially how they sculpted the morphers and the helmets at first. I know a lot of people were all, ooh and ah, look at this, look how so accurate these figures are. Because in 2019, when I was collecting whatever Legacy figures at the time, but I know people told me, fuck them Legacy figures, man. The Lightning figures are so much better. But, yeah, the Legacy figures, I have to realize they were not that great. Because a lot of Power Ranger fans were jumping the bandwagon on the fact that, Hasbro was going to give us better, more TV-authentic looking Ranger figures. So I waited a bit until when I did got my hands on the Shadow Ranger and Mag the Defender and take a good glimpse at them. And I was like, let's see how far I go with the collection. So at this point, and by the time the end of the 2010 decade, the end of the 2010s, and we entered this decade with the big V and all, I started opening up on the Lightning Collection more. So I didn't really get started on the Lightning Collection after I got Mag the Defender and the Shadow Ranger, Doggy Kruger as the Shadow Ranger, until I got my hands on, of course, that pointless 2-pack of the Lost Galaxy Red Ranger with Psycho Red, just because that little encounter they had into the 10th Power. Because I probably wanted something Lost Galaxy related. All the times I longed for new Lost Galaxy figures for at the time 20 years. Because not only that, 2019 was also Power Rangers Lost Galaxy's 20th anniversary anyway, so I figured, well, since they're doing Lost Galaxy Red and Mag the Defender, well, Blue would come out until just this past year, 2021. Now that I hear that Lost Galaxy Green and Yellow are coming out, they're probably going to likely push Pink to 2023. Who knows? So I can finally have all of Lost Galaxy, and I do have to get started finishing up In Space. So far, now, if speaking of In Space, now that I got Psycho Red and Astronema, the Red Ranger, and, well, one variant of Astronema, since we're getting a second one coming at the time of this video's recording, and then the Yellow Ranger for In Space. All that leaves now is for me to collect Black, Blue, well, via the Psycho Silver one, because I'm not getting that In Space Blue with the Galaxy Glider. That's pretty pointless. And Pink, and, well, the Psycho Rangers, I had all the time over the last 2 years from 2020 to today to get the Psycho Rangers in one set. But now, if you go on Amazon, the Psycho Rangers are pretty much, well, I'm pretty much pooped. I don't have over $199 on Amazon to get a Psycho Ranger pack, so I'm just gonna have to wait. SPD, well, I pretty much got everybody almost. Well, so far I just got started on SPD. Well, Shadow Ranger being my first. So far last year I did, if you saw my reviews for them on my channel, I did review the SPD Red Ranger and the Pink Ranger. I'm going to do the Blue Ranger pack, SPD Green, and the remaining A Squad until B Squad Yellow, Nova, and Cat are made, and also when I get the Omega Ranger off, which is an Amazon exclusive. You know, what's also befuddling about that is that the Omega SPD Ranger with his unicycle is an Amazon exclusive. I'm like, why? And note of the fact that when it was an Amazon exclusive, now when the figure first came out up for pre-order, it was still up for $30. But as time went on and months went by, now the thing just jumped the gun with its price. But hey, money is money. But there is another thing I also have to point out for some of the action figures for a lot of the majority of the Power Rangers, for some of the for like the paint. I don't want to talk about articulation. The articulation, real quick, the articulation is actually up par with the Marvel Legends and Star Wars Black figures, and even with currently the G.I. Joe Classify line. But I haven't even got my hands on any of the G.I. Joe figures. But actually, who gives a fuck about G.I. Joe? Really? Even though, yeah, they came back with a new line of toys, new decade, new G.I. Joe stuff, despite the fact Hasbro pretty much, I don't think, really cares about G.I. Joe anymore. Yeah, even though we had a recent new movie, which was Snake Eye centric, but it wasn't great. But I'm still going to get those G.I. Joe Classified figures as well to compare with a Marvel Legends or Power Rangers Lightning figure when I get my hands on them. And I even, and when was the last time I collected anything Transformers action figure wise? Not counting that Jada Toys Bumblebee thing from the last night I did a review on this channel. And actually, as a matter of fact, I haven't collected no Transformers because I think ever since when Hasbro bought Power Rangers, now all of a sudden I want to get into everything Hasbro except My Little Fucking Pony. Okay? Fuck that crap. So, but I really wanted to get into what Hasbro was doing because I've been fascinated with Hasbro's quality of toys. While some figures and stuff they've done for Transformers and G.I. Joe back in the early 2010s when they were in the zeitgeist of their live action movies from earlier, the Bay films plus the Channing Tatum led G.I. Joe films, they were hit and miss with their toys. But to be honest though, by the time I was phasing out of high school and onto adulthood, I wasn't really that into G.I. Joe and Transformers anymore because I think it's because due to their live action films and how they performed with audiences and their fan bases and stuff like that, as a benefactor to why, even as to why personally for me, why I kind of lost interest in both G.I. Joe and Transformers. And that's why I spent most of the entire decade, even up to now, 12 years later, pivoted to completely Power Rangers. Because it just go to show that maybe back when I was in that zeitgeist of talking all that crap I did, on this channel and content video series recently, years back before this point, I was like, I used to rant and raved a lot. I was complaining about the quality of Bandai's toys and also the inconsistence of some of the stuff and where it's available and where it's not available. And I just felt like Hasbro knows what they're doing with Power Rangers as of now. But even though they also had put out some roleplay stuff, again, like I said, the Morpher, and also not to mention, I got to talk about the helmets. Now, they did started putting out Lightning Collection helmets to make up for the fact that, I think good thing it's, something told me common sense back when I was still a struggling train wreck of a 20-something guy these past 10 years. I'm glad I did not get the Bandai Legacy Red and Green Ranger helmets. The ones that fit on your head. Thank God. Because now that Hasbro did Power Ranger helmets of their own, I don't have to worry about Bandai's overpriced as hell Red and Green Ranger helmets. I mean, they were cool for what they were from on the pictures, but owning one for $100 back when I didn't have that much money at the time, because I was a train wreck. Overall, personally, I'm glad I didn't get those helmets because as show authentic they were, but I think Bandai America really over exaggerated the helmet sculpt, thinking that everybody has a big fat head or something like that. Knowing that the fact that some people can wear those legacy helmets for cosplay if you're wearing a muscle green and red Ranger suit for Halloween or whatever, or cosplay. But I feel like the Lightning Collection helmets are worth the money than some over expensive cosplay helmet from like Anarchy Cosplay or wherever you can find a Power Rangers cosplay helmet that looks very Shaw authentic and real. Because, well, so far we only have the helmets for Mighty Morphin red, white, and pink. Although I heard the Pink Ranger's helmet can't really fit a guy's head all that well, but it can only fit a female's head. So, and also, I'm surprised they actually moved on to some villain stuff. They actually announced a Lord Zedd helmet. First time Lord Zedd is getting himself a roleplay helmet. And oh my god, if Robert Axelrod was still alive today and found out his character got a helmet, roleplay helmet for fans to wear and imitate Lord Zedd's gravelly, evil, Emperor of all evil voice and stuff, But, and then they also did other roleplay items, like, aside from the Morpher and the helmets, they did release that very hard to find Green Ranger's Dragon Dagger, which is also a Hasbro Pulse exclusive. And some other items they had put out recently, roleplay or so otherwise. Once they put out all of the Power Morphers and stuff, I think they're going to, and when they do get started on the Megazords, for which they are, starting with the Dino Megazord for the Zord Ascension project, I just hope eventually they will, after the Dino Megazord sells well, they will finish up the Season 1 stuff. Then think about doing a Zord Ascension project, which I'll discuss next time a little bit more on, what potential Megazords I would like to see in the Zord Ascension line after the Dino Megazord sells. If it sells, because of course, anything with the Dino Megazord is going to sell very well because it's MMPR. But, and knowing the fact the Megazords are going to be really expensive, just like the helmets and the Morphers. And, I think these figures, mostly the action figures. I like the Lightning collection mostly for the figures, because they also have the helmet sculpts, the head sculpts of the actors that have played all the Power Rangers, like Jason David Frank as Tommy, of course, and all the other actors that have been the Power Rangers from over the years. But vaguely, when I looked at, now for the human-looking villains, like Astronema, for example, Rita, when I looked at that Rita Repulsa figure they did with the Rita and Zedd wedding pack they did, Rita's face sculpt was basically her face sculpt where she had that angry face from that they probably took a scan of from the Legacy War game instead of using either Carla Perez's likeness for Rita for that figure, because knowing the fact when Carla Perez played Rita in the American footage by the wedding, she was Rita for the American footage. Like unless Hasbro didn't have the rights to use Carla Perez's likeness from the photos they took, they would gather of all the Power Ranger actors when they start making these figures, so they can take the likenesses of the actors that play these characters, because no one else can do them, because Power Ranger fans only see these people that were these characters from when we were growing up and stuff to today doing these characters and blah blah. And they didn't even bother, not even use Rita's Japanese stock face of the late Marucha Soga from Zoo Ranger, aka Rita in Power Rangers. They didn't have the rights to do that, so they decided to use a stock random angry fat lady face for Rita, basically the Rita face from the Legacy War game. Okay. Since of course that made sense, because you couldn't, since if you didn't have the rights to use Carla Perez's likeness for Rita, I guess I figured, well, fine, just use a random Rita Repulsa image from anything Power Rangers for from other merchandise for that likeness. I guess I'm not going to complain. And then when I get my hands on Scorpina's figure, when I get that 2-pack with Scorpina and Aisha as the Yellow Ranger. Now, at least Aisha, as the Mighty Morphin Yellow Ranger, still retained Karen Ashley's likeness. But once I get that said 2-pack with her and Scorpina is not going to likely have Sabrina Liu's likeness for Scorpina in that thing. But I can tell they probably just only use any random Japanese lady's face for Scorpina and just call it a day. Because I guess they couldn't afford, because I guess Hasbro probably didn't have the likeness to use Sabrina Liu's face from Scorpina for that one-off time Scorpina only appeared in American footage from Golar's Vice Versa. But speaking of Astronema, though, now Astronema, I do have her figure from that 2-pack I did a review on with her and her brother Andros, the Red Ranger. If I look back closely, once I get that other Astronema pack, which of course will inevitably will come with Ecliptor later in a couple months. That first Astronema 2-pack, which was based on back in that storyline of In Space, where it concludes the whole Astronema reveal. Andros finally found his sister and found out Astronema is his sister Corone thing with the blue hair. When I looked at the likeness of Astronema, well, especially when I get that second Astronema with Ecliptor, with the purple wig Astronema, the classic iconic Astronema with the purple wig thing. Astronema, her likeness, well, they did have her hair color down with that figure, and then the armor pieces and the outfit down. But if I look closely when I get the second Astronema and when I do my review on it, I have a feeling that when I look at that first Astronema figure they did in Attempt, part of it did look like Melody Perkins as the character, and then in some shots it's like it didn't. Parts of it doesn't even look anything like her. Like, I mean, am I sure they got her facial features right? Because that's what I'm most worried about when they do other female humanoid villains in PR in the Lightning line. Like when they do Divatox, when they do Nadira, Trakina, Vipra, Tanaya 7, and Roxy outside of her, form, and Camille and all those other lady villains that are humanoid in Power Rangers. They're likely going to do random facial likenessing of those villains, but I think, well, even though I'm still waiting on when they're going to do Trakina in the Lightning collection, I know they're going to likely probably mask her up, just like I discussed about the Trakina's Revenge thing from Lightspeed Rescue last night and stuff. And like, if they're not going to do Amy Miller's likeness of Trakina from Lost Galaxy in the Lightning line, if they even have the rights, they should, Hasbro should have the rights to everything Power Rangers. The rights to use most of the actors' likenesses, if some actors from the franchise are cool to see in their faces on some of these action figures or not. Especially the actors who played the villains. But I do want to see a Trakina that had Amy's face on it. But if they can't do Amy as Trakina for that likeness, they can just use any random woman's face for Trakina. I'll just buy the figure. Who cares? Move on. Same go for Divatox. If it doesn't contain Hillary Shepard's likeness for Divatox, well, okay, move on. If it doesn't, for Vipra, if it doesn't have Jennifer Yen's likeness on that figure, who cares? Move on. All of that, So that's probably why, when I looked at that Astronema figure from that 2-pack, I knew then and there it didn't even retain the likeness of her actress closely enough. If it did. But if it didn't, well, who cares? Move on. Yeah, but I got sidetracked. But the paint, like when I was looking at the Mighty Morphin figures, I, back when I was, I'm all over the place trying to put this together though. The Mighty Morphin figures, when I was hesitant of trying to do those figures, when I first started hearing about the Lightning collection, now that Bandai's Power Ranger stuff has been snapped out of existence as of now, I was hesitant to do any of the Mighty Morphin figures. Although the original Pink Ranger, Kimberly, her figure is very hard to find these days. So good luck trying to get a Mighty Morphin Pink Ranger with Kimberly's head, because the only bet you only get is basically Catherine as Mighty Morphin Pink, bundled with her as the Pink Zeo Ranger off of Hasbro Pulse. Because I know that Mighty Morphin Pink was going to sell out so crazy, because I know that Kimberly is the OG Pink Ranger, but they didn't need, there was no need for her figure to sell out so crazy like that. I get there are a lot of fans of Amy Jo Johnson and Kimberly Hart, the original Pink Ranger, but it's just like, her figure sold, man, I kind of wish I could have gotten that figure after I got Mag the Defender and the Shadow Ranger 3 years ago, but I was like, well, fuck. I guess I'm going to have to wait a few years for a restock. I don't know when. It'll take forever for a restock of Mighty Morphin Pink. Or if not, just get that 2-pack of Mighty Morphin Pink that has Catherine's only 2 Pink Ranger forms out as of right now. Mighty Morphin Pink with Cat and Pink Zeo with Cat, I guess. And there were some other figures that are hard to find right now, which is a pain. Dino Charge, red, gold, and black. Hopefully I'll get Dino Charge green and pink this year at least, since red, gold, and black are up the price and expensive right now. And I should have got those figures when I had the chance. And then as for the Psycho Rangers, like the Psycho Rangers, they are very expensive. I wish I had the whole team, but instead I only got that Psycho Red that came with that pointless 2-pack with Lost Galaxy Red. Even though I'm happy I got a Psycho Ranger figure until I get the rest. Including that my least favorite Psycho Ranger, green, of course. All of them figures like that. Even Lord Draken, he's very expensive right now. Tommy is the original Green Ranger, plus the Fighting Spirit one, which is also pointless. That's expensive right now. So, I do like the fact that Hasbro had been doing these figures up the scale with the Marvel Legends and Star Wars Black figures, and currently with G.I. Joe doing their figures in the vein of Power Rangers Lightning and Marvel Legends, and I'm happy they were thinking about G.I. Joe in that scale, because after all, now that G.I. Joe is 4 decades into its existence in 80s, 90s millennial generation pop culture, now that G.I. Joe is in the scale of Marvel Legends and Power Rangers Lightning Collection as of currently, now G.I. Joe doesn't have to deal with being those 4-inch, 3-inch action figures anymore. So yeah, and of course, there's some Transformers in the scale of the Lightning Collection and Star Wars Black 2. And I might get back to collecting Transformers. Mostly the Studio Series stuff. But, yeah, that's the thing. Because, I've always longed for Hasbro to do these Power Ranger figures, or any in the form of Marvel Legends for years, or something of any kin with Hasbro, and how they did, how they would do Power Rangers. And I said this back in my days, and when I was still doing that Rise of Trakina fan film I've talked about, even back when I was doing that make believe, pretending that doing that make believe if Hasbro had the toy license, we were still in the days of Bandai America with the toy license to Power Rangers at the time when I said all that crazy stuff on Ranger Wiki, talking about Hasbro doing a toy line for a made up fan-made movie, when Hasbro does official stuff. They don't do fan-made crap. But yeah, that's something I still regret talking about to this day, though. I think that's all I can say about the Lightning Collection. I don't want to keep everyone up for long, but all I can say is, the more figures they put out for the Lightning Collection, the better. And, they are getting better. Because when I saw the first batch of figures, like, the Ranger figures looked okay and looked fine when they first came out. But I was never really that crazy about the civilian head sculpts for Tommy and Kimberly for Mighty Morphin White and Pink. And especially Zack as the Black Ranger with the dragon shield and that head sculpt, which looked odd and weird and stuff like that. But they got better, and also, again, Mighty Morphin Red, and I'm finally glad it took Power Rangers for the merchandise nearly 30 years to finally get the Red Ranger, the original Red Ranger's Tyrannosaurus visor right. Thanks to when they released Rocky as the metallic armor Red Ranger, for example, if you look at it even on the photo for this video, and even on the Tyrannosaurus Sentry on the right of the photo, I'm glad they finally got the Red Ranger's helmet sculpt right. Because every single Mighty Morphin Red figure we had over the last nearly 30 years, the helmet sculpt just didn't add up to how the others looked from off the show. The other Rangers of MMPR mean. So I'm glad they fixed that problem. Kudos. So I think that's about it about the Lightning Collection. I wish I could say more. I don't want to keep people up all night or so talking about it for an hour. I can go on and on talking about pros and cons of the Lightning Collection. But I've already said some of the cons already. Like, the way how they did the head sculpts for Tommy and Kimberly earlier during Hasbro's first year with Power Rangers for the Lightning Collection. But they did got better with their head sculpts for their Ninja Ranger figures when I get my hands on them ever. Especially that Kimberly head sculpt. If I do get my hands on Mighty Morphin Pink, I think that Ninjetti Kimberly head can work well, but then I have to like paint out the pink ninja head strap and just make it look like she just had a regular, something like that, I guess. But anyway, guys, that's it. What are your thoughts about the Lightning Collection? Let me know in the comments, and I'm off for now. Anyway, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed what I had to say about the Lightning Collection, because even though I said some really hard things about it, like Psycho Green being included or something. But anyway, that's it for the night. I'll see you guys next time with a new video.